and welcome to a special episode of the Dublin Arsenal podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Giles. On this special podcast, I'm delighted to be joined by special guests, and a welcome return to our podcast by BBC Match of the Days and Premier League Productions footy commentator Conor McNamara to discuss all things Arsenal and chat about Mikel Arteta's managerial reign to date. Remember, both our shows, preview and review shows, are available to listen and watch on Spotify and on the Dublin Arsenal YouTube channel. So grab a beverage and enjoy the show. As I said, it's great to have him back on again. Um, our very own John Motson of Ireland, Conor McNamara. How are you, pal?
Jonathan, I knew you'd have a smile on your face. I mean, I just knew with the way the Premier League table is that this would be all smiles and beams and Liverpool losing yesterday. I was at Anfield for that, and I mean, I'll be honest, I didn't see that coming. I didn't. Particularly when, I mean, fair enough, Manchester United taking the lead, but when Liverpool got it back to 1-1, you think, oh, if anything, Liverpool will go nick this now. But fair play to Manchester United for getting the win, and I'd imagine the Arsenal fraternity would be very pleased he did.
Yeah, it's great to see Harry Maguire once again popping up with a vital header. He seems to come up with the big moments, especially last season against Leon. And
Yeah.
he's just made for them big moments to aggravate opposition fans. Four defeats in a row though now for
Mhm.
Liverpool, Connor. It's the passing of Diego Jota. I think it's having a bit of a mental effect, and rightfully so. This is Ernie Stotts' first real test. He got a good run at it last season. They had an incredible first season as a manager.
Mm.
Would you worry a bit if you were Ernie Slot 4 defeats in a row, especially the season as a whole? You can't keep winning in the last 10 minutes of games, and it's really showing now, isn't it?
No, it's a real concern, and I think it's all just in the context of how, and this is a strange word to use, but this is how it looked last year. How easy it all looked for him last year. He came in. What you forget is how everyone was worried. Hang on, who's this guy? You're replacing Jurgen Klopp. And was it a kind of an aging team, and was it a past their best team? Is Salah too old? Is Van Dijk? Everyone thought he was going to have this really tricky time last year,
Yeah,
and. And I think this current run, if last year, a few good results in August and then hit a bit of a slump and lost four in a row, I think people probably would have thought, yeah, I was kind of expecting this now. Let's see how good he is. Is he going to be able to fight his way out of it? Because we've never seen him tested before. I mean, it's four defeats in a row now. I think with Alkmaar, I'm not even sure did he once lose two games in a row, but that was it. So in his
yeah.
entire managerial career, he's not had this, or PSV, I should say, he's not had this track record or this situation to have to evolve with. So it is new ground for everyone. I think with Liverpool, the fact that it was this Klopp team that he inherited, the fact that famously he didn't make any signings last season. Chiesa was the only one who came in and barely featured. So it was Klopp's team. This is now, and emboldened by the fact he was so successful, the board have said, yeah, go spend fortunes, break the British transfer record, bring in Florian Wirtz. And it's not worked. I mean, the new guys who come in just haven't worked. And he's got his work cut out now, and only because the standards are so high. Whoever gets the Forest job, or say Thomas Frank at
Yeah.
Spurs, fine, finish top six, right? That's a good base now. Build on that. Anything below winning the title is going to be a huge disappointment for Liverpool this season, and that's why there's a desperation. And I was at Anfield yesterday, and I could definitely sense there was a few times Gravenberch would turn and roll it back to the keeper, or something like someone in midfield would turn and take a negative step, and there was a groan around Anfield, and the Liverpool fans didn't like that. And the reaction to what I saw was once or twice Van Dijk started pinging these really long passes and too
Yeah.
far ahead of Gakpo, and someone did it for Salah too far. And you could see where that desperation would creep in. And this really successful team who've been brilliant to watch, who've got the medals to back it all up, but yet they were panicking a bit. And if they can contain that panic is going to be the big interesting thing to see in the next few weeks.
I think as well, when you win this Premier League, Liverpool winning the Premier League last season, it's very hard to get that fire going again, isn't it? When you've accomplished that, we saw with Pep Guardiola's Man City teams and Ferguson's Manchester United sides in the past, where they could season on season keep that fire going. Do you think because the players are on such high wages now, Connor? Mohamed Salah, since he signed that 400 grand a week deal, he's wonder would Liverpool would have wanted to get rid of him maybe in the summer because he look.
Look,
You
hindsight, John, is
think,
always the
yeah,
thing, you know. I mean, and I think right here, right now, you thought, hang on, you know, if they could have gotten rid of him this summer, you know, off in the glory, winning the league, and send him off to Saudi, probably get, you know,
yeah,
some money somewhere, certainly not have to pay the wages.
yeah,
In hindsight, you'd have thought, oh well, okay, I understand what they're doing now. At the time, though, you know, it would
yeah,
have been seen as such a negative step, and this is Liverpool who are, you know, need to show ambition now because they're winning the league, and you've got this decorated player who's been, you know, and his track record absolutely speaks for itself. He's been brilliant.
he's great.
The only negative thing with Salah is there's only one figure that doesn't work, and that's his age. I mean, look, I don't know, and I have to say this. I'm purely speculating now, but the fact they gave him this new contract, just the way of the modern world, how everything is so thought out, I wouldn't be surprised if there was some sort of a deal within a deal. You know, we get things like, you know, Messi will get a part to the Inter Miami club when he retires. So, you know,
Yeah,
who knows that something was built in to say, look, you know, there'll be a little exit ramp after a year, after 18 months, you can go to Saudi and we'll get the man. They'll pay your wages. They'll be delighted to have him. You know, there could be that sort of escape route for Liverpool.
yeah,
But look, I'm purely speculating saying that. And who knows? And I wouldn't bet against him. You know, he could still find his vein of form. It's just that the stats aren't adding up. Yeah, you look at it, and you know, in stats you can prove anything with football, but the bare necessity stuff, he's not getting involved. He's not getting the touches. He's not getting the shots. He's not getting the shots on target that he has been any stage of his Liverpool career. So they've all declined. And it's not all Salah, of course. It's a team that's adapting. Trent Alexander-Arnold isn't pinging those passes that were so successful
yeah,
for him.
yeah.
Frimpong, who I do think is a very good player, is dribbling past Salah, and that's what Frimpong wants to do. So there's a whole sort of concoction of issues, but worrying times for Liverpool, and yet, you know, still plenty of time for them to get it right.
I'm sure that's music to all Arsenal fans. There's that comment.
Well, you know,
I'd be
I have
delighted
to
to
say,
say there's
as
a
a coach,
four point
I don't
difference.
want Arsenal being 10 points clear of the top either. You know what I mean? We want to keep this exciting. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, to be honest with you, when we get 10 points clear, things will have heart attacks. I don't think I could handle it. I'm 20 years, what's it be, 22 years since Arsenal last won the title,
I know it's way too
2004.
long. Way
It's
too long.
incredible.
Yeah.
Like, it's, as it stands, we're 4 points clear to Liverpool, thank God.
Mm.
But I still feel Liverpool are still only warming up. They've signed a lot of players in the summer. They're all starting, they still need to get to know, what
Mm.
way Liverpool play, I suppose. And it's only a matter, I think after Christmas is when you see
Yeah.
the real
Yeah.
title race. It's
And that's, and to be
I'm
fair,
not,
and City have
yeah,
found their form as well, haven't they?
yeah, they
So
have. They've snuck up the
it's not like
table.
there's only one threat there. There's a few. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, God, I hate that. Hey, man, they've really come back to Hondas, but no, it's been a great start of the season.
Mm.
First of all, it's all things Arsenal. We forget about Liverpool for the moment.
Yeah.
Mikel Arteta is approaching 6 years on the 26th of December as Arsenal manager. A roller coaster of a transformation in many Gunners fans' eyes. What have you made of his reign today, Connor, in the 6 years?
I think he's done well. And you mentioned the 22 years, you know, so it's very easy to say, okay, you've been there 6 years, why haven't you won the title yet? But as a club,
Yeah,
Arsenal have, you know, tried many different approaches. Guys who've done well elsewhere, like Emery, you know, I don't think anyone's going to say Emery's not a good coach, but he
yeah,
wasn't able to get a league title at Arsenal. And I think Arteta's been a good fit. And what I mean by that, he's what the club have needed at the time. The professor kind of retired, and it
yeah,
was, you know, bring in now get a young, energetic, new generational thing. I think if you tried to get a carbon copy of Wenger, no one was ever going to live up to that, and it's not what the club needed, you know. So I think he's come in. He has had the fresh ideas. He's obviously learned a lot of Pep Guardiola, but he's very much his own man. He's learned on the job. I don't think
yeah,
anyone would say he's not a better coach now. The things like the tactics, the decisions, the substitutions in game that he's making
yeah.
make a lot more sense
They
now.
do.
I think that
Yeah,
was a weakness in the first few years
yeah.
that sort of took a while to add up. I think he carries himself well. I think he looks well. I think he represents the club. I think, you know, there's no sort of scandal about him. He doesn't say stupid things in press
No.
conferences. He doesn't get into fights with interviewers and that kind of thing. And I do think, as much as that seems peripheral, I think that's important when you've got a big club and a club that wants to go places. You've got to be the calm presence in there. He just needs it to fall his way, and he's been so close the past few seasons. And we know the tight, narrow margins. I've been at so many of the games themselves.
Yeah,
And I actually think this weekend, that Fulham game, that's a good example of a game in previous seasons
yeah.
that Arsenal might have been a 0-0. You know, who knows? Even
They
concede a
do.
goal and
Yeah,
lose it 1-0. So, you know, being able to see that through to get over the line. definitely feels like progress and a step forward. And I would say, and I wouldn't say it's sort of to him to his face or whatever. It's like not fair putting pressure on a guy, but I think the Arsenal fan base still feels well. This is the season though. You gotta get it
Yeah,
this year now. This is the opportunity.
yeah.
Seal the deal now, or else some of those doubts will creep in as to whether he actually has that level to get it over the line.
I tell you, the book by Charles Watts, Connor, Revolution, a fascinating read of what Michael Arteta inherited
Mm.
when he came
Sorry,
in.
sorry, Jonathan. Just you broke up at the very start of that sentence. Just say start that again.
Sorry, the book by Charles Watts, Revolution.
Oh yeah.
Um, it's a fascinating read of what
Mm.
Mikel Arteta inherited. In particular, Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang, Mesut Ozil, two big names, and the way they didn't fit into his style. Were you impressed by that? Being like you could say an apprentice on the job at the time, or it was quite early on in his tenure. Were you quite impressed the way he dealt with two big names like that?
Yeah, no, absolutely, and you can correct me if I've got the details wrong in this, but I remember it's quite a few years ago now. But early in the rain, there was an incident where I'm pretty sure it was Aubameyang showed up late, he like late for the team
Yeah,
bus or something like that,
right.
and he
Yeah,
dropped him. And
yeah,
that was a big deal at the time because
yeah,
Aubameyang was the top scorer, main player, and you go, whoa, hang on,
yes,
and it was a big game from what I remember. It's kind of like, hang on, could we not give him a rap on the knuckles some other way? Like, do we have,
yeah,
we could,
yeah,
Arsenal could actually do with him on the pitch today.
yeah. It was one
Um,
of those games
but
actually.
but but that was one of those moments where you feel right, yeah, he's not just going to try and keep the dressing room happy. He's got the bigger picture here.
Yeah,
And yeah, I guess it's been a difficult problem for a lot of teams. I think Manchester United are a great example. Who knows, maybe Liverpool might be facing this, is that, when you decide that actually these the old guard who might have served you well, who might have had their great moments, but they're not doing it repetitively enough at the moment. Where do you cut that umbilical cord, and how do you decide to let things go? So, it was still a slow process, and I think in modern football, it's not all about the coach as well. The business end of paying wages and finding clubs to buy a player who's on big wages. That's not really handled by the manager anymore. That'll all be done at board level, and they've got whole departments to do with that stuff. So Mikel Arteta had to sort of ride that balance of some of the guys who you could see, yeah, weren't going to be part of his long term plan, but he get a tune out of them in the short term to help the sort of advancement of it. But I think in the main, he's been very good at bringing in players, and at times he's been ruthless. I think a good example is Zinchenko. So I think Zinchenko, who clearly is his mate, they're together at City.
yeah,
Zinchenko, everyone feels a lovely guy, really good player, but wasn't getting much of a game at City. So he's thinking, right, I'll go to Arsenal. Arteta's going to play me. And really, you look at Zinchenko's Arsenal career, he's not been a regular for any long period of time. And I think that was quite a ruthless decision from Arteta to do that, to take him in to say, right, I'm going to give you games, and then ultimately decide, well, actually, you're not providing what I want here. And I think that kind of ruthlessness is important. And I think growing all the time, his willingness to give young players the chance. I think, Lewis Skelly's a great example. You bring him in, you give him the opportunity, but then it's not like, oh, he's my kid now, he's my boy, I have to look after him. It's like, well, hang on, actually, Calafiori is better for me at the moment at left back, so Lewis Kelly doesn't get to play.
yeah,
These are the decisions that coaches have to take. I think there's probably a huge pressure to play Dauman a lot because everyone thinks he's the wonder kid, and everyone wants to see him. But I think Arteta's managed that well. That he's kept him active, he's kept him involved, but not centre stage yet. So look, I think he's making the good decisions, and I think he has done from the start. But as we said, it has to reach a culmination at some point now. This has reached the time where, if it's going to happen to Arsenal, it needs to be now, because they can't go back start recycling a whole other team again. That's not going to happen. He's got the
yeah. You're
squad now.
right.
Been really impressed. The opening weeks of the season, I'll probably list them out now and forget because I don't get to see every game the way you do. But he's had Odegaard missing for most of it. He's had Saka missing for a lot of it. There was one game Declan Rice didn't start. Remember, you're thinking
Yeah,
like, God, these are the actual core of the team, but the fact that those guys can go out and in previous seasons that kills Arsenal. That's immediately a depleted performance. But now suddenly you've Zubimendi in the midfield, and you've got Madueke on the right wing, and suddenly the guys who are coming in, you're actually thinking, whoa, hang on, is there a way we can get him and Saka in the team together? It's not about just patching over, being a bandage for a cut. It's actually wondering, could this be the thing in future? So that overall recruitment has probably been the most impressive thing for me of what Arteta has done. He has now built a squad that I think it's very difficult to say is not as strong as any other squad in the Premier League. You can't say, well, he's got a good starting 11 or he's got a good 8 players or something like that. He has got as good a squad as anyone. So to get into that position, of course, there's no medals for it. That's an achievement in itself. But now he's got to make it sing.
Yeah, we've got like a team A and a team B now of equal
Mm.
quality, which
You'd love to see them play each other, actually.
I would actually, yes.
Yeah.
I love when the next international break comes along, if
Yeah.
you could field two teams, and that would really give him a headache, but we'd probably end up being in more injuries, so it'd probably be more of a course than that. The signings, though, the Cronkies have heavily backed him in this transfer window.
Mm,
And the age profile you can see is for the future, the
mm.
project, all nearly in their early 20s to mid 20s. Martin Zubimendi, Christian Mosquera, who's been absolutely sensational. I knew very little about him from Valencia, but when he's been asked and called upon, he's a
Mm.
great replacement for either Gabriel or
What
Saliba.
what 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 I love about him is how forward thinking he is. There's so many
Yeah,
players
he
who
doesn't
play
go
that
back.
pivot role and
Yeah,
they're neat and tidy. Give it to the
yeah,
full back, give it to the centre half, don't lose it. That's kind of
yeah,
the requirement of the job. I
yeah,
think Ugarte at Man United's that sort of player and always has been. I was looking at his stats at Paris Saint-Germain. You see, it was fine. Paris Saint-Germain, he would do that, give it back to the centre half, they'd ping it out to Mbappe or whoever it was in the, Dembele, and it was all fine. It didn't matter that it wasn't coming through the middle. But Premier League, I really think you've got to have that force. And the good teams, Rodri obviously has done it to great effect over the years. And Zubimendi has that, where his first
yeah.
instinct, first touch is always, let's go for it. Let's break through the lines. Now, if you can drop his shoulder and go past someone, which you can do, fine. But usually it's playing passes, but forward passes. And even the body language of the recipient player. He doesn't play passes to feet where a player is going to be then facing him. He's
Yeah.
playing it in encouraging them to go on and go
Go
forward as
for
well.
yeah,
It
yeah,
really is lovely to see. And that in the Premier League, that is so difficult to do. I don't know if you saw there was a thing about 2 weeks ago on Match of the Day that a new sort of graphic computer system thing where
oh
they can
yeah,
sort of they show you,
yeah,
the image of what it would be for the player. And
yeah.
I'm
Seen
pretty
it.
sure
Yeah,
they
yeah,
used Zubimendi. Was it Declan Rice? I'm pretty sure it was Zubimendi. Anyway, whoever it was, but it was that sort of situation that made you realize, how fast it is. Players coming in from all sides,
yeah.
being able to pick those through balls is fantastic. So yeah, I've been really impressed with him. He's made, you talk about what's the missing link between coming second, almost being there, and actually winning the league, and he on his own could actually be the answer to that question.
Yeah, Zubimendi, it gives Declan Rice a bit more freedom to move forward as well,
Mm.
because
Oh yeah,
Rice has him behind him. But that goal against Nottingham Forest, that volley, what a finish! If you
yeah,
want to get fans on your side,
yeah,
that's the
yeah.
type of moments that you want. But he's fitted in quite effortlessly, and to have turned down Liverpool, I've great respect for him. Um, Melanie Madueke came in from Chelsea. There was 3,000 fan petition not wanting them to join.
Yeah,
That's completely changed, and I'd love to see all them 3,000 names come up
yeah.
here now.
Well, look,
Um,
I'm happy
he's
to hold my hand up and say,
23, Connor Nani
yeah,
Madueke. I thought Chelsea were mad letting a player of
yeah.
his quality go because last season he really impressed me at Chelsea when he got a chance. He's a perfect replacement. Bukayo Saka's in another world, but
Mm.
when Saka's injured, isn't he the ideal player to get fans off their seat? He's direct, pace. What else could you ask for?
Yeah, and he does it so repetitively, doesn't he?
Yeah,
When he gets the ball, it more often than not, he's dropping the shoulder, he's getting to the
yeah,
byline. It's not sort of like little sparks every now and again. It's pretty
yeah,
much every time he gets the ball, he looks like he's creating something. Also, his flexibility, the fact that when Saka is fit, he can play in other positions. It's not like he's this out and out right winger. Makes him even more valuable. And I think he's been so good this season. It's not just a understudy to Saka role. He's going to be played. That Arteta has to find a place for him in the team. A bit like keep referring to Liverpool and Manchester United and stuff. Because I see these teams on a regular basis. But like Ekitike, I think he deserves to be in that team now. And if Isak's not ready and if Salah's not firing, they've got to find a way for this other guy who maybe initially they thought was going to be the impact player off the bench. But yeah, Madueke, I like his attitude. I like his body language, his demeanor. There's no moaning, there's no diving, there's no criticizing or pointing fingers. He just get on with it, business.
yeah.
And it's been very impressive to see. And it's one of those signings. I'll be honest, when I saw it first, like a lot of money, and you kind of think, do Arsenal already have a few players like that? Trossard and Wanyeri can play there, and there's a few other players who can play in these sort of positions, and you think, well, do Arsenal really need him? But then you see the outcome and how well he played, and you think, well, yeah, wow, they really, that is going to be a huge benefit to the club.
Yeah, I was at the Manchester City game
Mm,
last month. I very rarely get to go over, but when I do go over, I happen to pick good games. And the way he gave the Manchester City fullback Guardiola, I think it was, on the
mm,
day, an awful time. Yeah, I think he picked up a niggle that game. But
mm.
when you get fans off their seats,
Yeah,
you've a special player there, isn't it? You just
yeah,
feel that in anticipation he's going to do something special. But for
big time.
48 million, I think that's a
Yeah,
snip if
yeah,
he can continue that progress he's
yeah.
made.
Agreed.
Victor Gyökeres,
Mm.
Connor, he had a wonderful 2 seasons for Sporting Lisbon, and he hasn't scored now in 7 games in all comps. But from what I saw of him against Fulham, he's getting into these positions. He's dropping the shoulder, getting away from the defender, and his strikes are getting on target, most important, but obviously not going in. Do you see him being the answer to, that number 14 Arsenal have lacked? Is he that striker to get us that 20 plus goals a season? That,
I'll tell you what I think. I think he's not the finished product yet.
yeah,
And you can look at his highlight reel in Portugal and look, he knows how to finish. He knows how to go, run with the ball.
yeah,
He knows he's got the attributes. But as we all know, Premier League is an extreme elite level. Absolutely, the jury is still out as to whether it's going to be. What I would say is it's an improvement on the last couple of years. I think you've had Havertz filling in, you've had Mikel Merino having to be up there. Any of the good things that they did, I think Gyökeres can do that. And they weren't getting up into the astronomical numbers of goals. They're doing their best. They're chipping away. They were, Havertz in particular actually had a very good streak one year. But still, you're the
yeah.
talk of the goal machine that you want wearing that number 14 shirt.
14.
I think Gyökeres has got more. Give him time, give him space, give him the opportunity to try and mold that role for himself. That's for me much likelier to be beneficial than to try and do the square peg and round hole sort of thing that has been of recent seasons. It's funny because I'd seen Gyökeres a bit Champions League, and I actually was in Portugal. I worked in the game when he did. Did he get a hat trick against Man City? One of his,
Yes, that's right.
one of Amram's last
He
games
did,
in
yeah.
charge. I remember being there. You kind of think, okay, well, hang on, maybe he is the real deal here.
Yeah,
But then there was other times I saw him and I thought, oh, I'm not quite sure. Like yes, you've scored 2 goals in the game, but you've had 6 or 7 chances to get those
yeah.
2 goals. You won't get those 6 or 7 chances
In the Premier
in the
League.
Premier League, isn't it? So, and
Yeah,
it's a bit like, but he's got to find his way,
yeah,
it's very unfair to compare people to others. But if you look at Erling Haaland, Haaland has had to adapt his game. We know he's a wonderful specimen. He's got wonderful attributes.
yeah.
But he has had to change what he does. And what he was doing for Dortmund and Salzburg, that's not what he does for Man City. So he had to learn new tricks. He had to be patient. And I think it's almost you've got to be humble enough to do that. So you're scoring goals. You think, well, hang on, why should I have to change? I'm scoring, get everyone else to change to suit me. Now, when you've
Yeah,
Pep Guardiola, when you've 4-time winning champions, it's maybe a bit easier to say, well, no, fine. You tell me to jump, I'll ask how high.
yeah,
You'd hope Gyökeres is going to have that same sort of attitude that he'll say to Arteta, look, fine, I know it's not happening at the moment, but I'm doing what you tell me to do. If you want me to do something else, I'll do that. But this is me doing what I can do to help the team. But yeah, look, any striker, he needs it to win off his arse. He needs, want to bring it, just get a run going, get a few goals, score 3 games in a row, that kind of thing. And suddenly he won't even be in a conversation then.
yeah. It took Thierry Henry and Dennis Bergkamp when they
Yeah.
first joined
Yeah.
Arsenal nearly 9, 10 games
Yeah, I
to
remember
get into,
Van Persie as well. It took him half a season really before we saw the best of him. Yeah,
like our top scorer last season, which quite remarkably was Kai Havertz with all the injuries he had, 9 goals. It was the
yeah,
first time in a long time that I didn't see an Arsenal player get
yeah.
into double digits, and we're not even in the top goal scorer charts at the moment. There's not one Arsenal player along there, which kind of
Mm.
shows that the goals are coming from everywhere, which
But
is a good
but
thing. Is
not conceding is the thing, and that's it.
yeah,
Look,
three goals, Connor. Is if you have a tight defence, as Arteta said, you stand half a chance of winning the
yeah,
league, don't you? A tight
yeah,
defence.
and
Yeah,
look, and I do like it. It's an Arsenal tradition that the whole 1-0 thing. That is an ethos of the club that they rightly very proud of, and I think it. But
yeah.
look, you look at the recent games. They're not conceding goals,
No,
and
yeah,
that is actually more important than say having a striker who's already up to 11 or 12. It doesn't matter if the team aren't conceding goals. That's number one because the goals will come, as you say.
yeah,
Zubimendi will rifle them in, and
yeah,
Saka's going to start getting a few goals surely now as well. But yeah, look, what it is the modern world. We all want instant assessments. We all want to know everything
yeah.
now. No one's got patience to wait. But yeah, let's talk in February, March. Let's see how Gyökeres has settled down by then. Yeah, I don't think. I think it's the same with Isak. Same with Sheshko. These
Yeah,
new
it's
guys, yeah, it's
early
too early for
days.
any of them. Yeah, so it's not like we're giving him a special buy here or anything. It applies to a lot of people in that situation. Yeah.
Yeah, it was between Chesko and Gyökeres who we were
Mm.
going for. I still think Gyökeres is probably being the better, but it's still very early days. He's a winning runner, and he's winning to be.
He's older. He's more
Yeah,
experienced, I guess. Yeah, yeah.
it's hard to believe he played for Brighton and Coventry back in the day,
Mm.
and he's back again in England, and he's a beast of a man. If
Mm.
you can, if you can turn into a Haaland-esque, it'd be sweet. But look, once he gets the goals for us, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Eberechi Eze, Connor, £60 million from
Yeah.
Crystal Palace. Good signing in your eyes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And he could get in any team. He could play at City, he could play
Yeah,
Liverpool's team, he could play, there's no Premier League team that wouldn't find a place for him. I think it's all made for him to be a big star at the World Cup next summer. And that is the thing
really, yeah,
because England are spoiled for choices in those positions.
yeah,
Foden, Cole Palmer,
yeah,
I mean, I'm forgetting half of them now, but obviously Saka, but they have a lot of those behind Harry Kane figures. Your man Anthony Gordon, there's a
yeah,
lot of them, right? But there's something about Eze that the Gordon's very direct and he's very
yeah,
running at people, but at a World Cup, you can see a scenario where England, and this is, I'm just going off previous track records. I don't, I do this finding a team. It's a good England team. It's not like they're, head and shoulders above anything that's come before. But I can see a scenario where they're playing against teams who sit back, defend deep against them. And that's where those sort of through balls for an Anthony Gordon isn't going to be quite as effective. You need someone who can pick the lock, who can be creative, little 1-2, little outside of the boot, low ball into the area, that kind of thing, which I think Eze does really well. Always head up, always looking to see, well, hang on, is there a chance of the shot here? And I think, yeah, he needs to have a good season with Arsenal, obviously, but I think very good chance that he's in the starting 11 for Thomas Tuchel once the World Cup comes around. And look, I think Arsenal fans will be delighted if that's the case because if he does get into that team, that means he's had a very good season at club level.
yeah, yeah. He's still so young as well, isn't he? As
Mm,
he just when he played for Crystal Palace, he just seemed to glide across the pitch, like effortlessly. He never lost the ball. He kept the ball really well, and you can see that with Arsenal. Doesn't panic.
mm,
Got the assist for Gabriel Martinelli against Man City. That ball over the top,
yeah,
a beautiful moment. And he started off at Arsenal, of course, as a young lad. So it's nice to have him back. And £60 million, they looked high prices in the summer, but when you see them all playing now, and we're only what 8, 9 games in, they all
yeah,
look steals. Um, Last season, Connor Arsenal, we made it to the semi-finals of the Champions League.
mm,
Unfortunately, we came up against a top keeper in Donnarumma, who literally had one of the games of
yeah,
his life in the second leg. I've never seen so many saves by one keeper. Incredible saves at that.
yeah.
Um, do you think Arsenal could go one better this season in the Champions League, Connor, having experienced that last
Yeah,
season?
look, it's really difficult, isn't it? I've been lucky enough to work Champions League for so many years that
Yeah,
once you reach those knockout stages, that to me is the elite of the game, and I really think that it's even a higher standard than the World Cup knockout stages, because I think say Argentina and Messi, but like, they all have to be Argentinian players, and you're working with the pool of players you have. These clubs can, the big clubs can go out and take any player from any nationality they want and get the exact balance that works for their team, and I think they're definitely my favorite games to watch in terms of footballing high quality, and that's where you're,
yes.
you're up against a goalkeeper who really can block you out. So even if you're doing everything else right, that stumbling block can upset you completely, or a moment of brilliance. Even though you can play a fantastic defensive performance, there'll be a moment of brilliance from an attacker in the other team who can carve you open. And the fact that the two-legged ties and the away goals rules and all these kind of things, it's very difficult to rise. And it's almost like you say, they're all of such a high standard. There's no guarantee that one team, doesn't matter who you are, is gonna actually go through. You do need a bit of luck. But look, all of that said, Arsenal reached semi-final last year, and as we've referred to, have a better squad this time round. So if we take it in, scientific basic terms like that, then yes, there is a good opportunity for Arsenal to go one better. But as we know over the years, there's also the opportunity where you draw Real Madrid in the last 16 and good night and good luck. So look who doesn't. Those moments. I mean, I'm just remembering obviously the Declan Rice free kicks and stuff like that. Like,
It's
you
incredible.
need a few moments of brilliance as well along the way. But I think there's more. It's more. It's not like you've got to wait for a Saka or whoever to get there. Every player in those attacking positions, and even some of the deeper line players, have got that moment. Calafiore's got a wonder goal in him, doesn't he? And
He does,
Timber's got
yeah.
a few goals this season, and Gabriel will come up for corners, and
Yeah,
so it's any opposition. You can't just pick three or four Arsenal players to say if you keep them quiet, they're not going
yeah.
to score
The
against us.
whole
It's
11.
just not the way, right? Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
It's as Eamon always says on our podcast, is our little bollocks of a set piece coach. He must be all the opposition absolutely hate him. But it's woven to great effect as we found out the
It
weekend.
is. It is.
Um, yeah, it's 2006 was the last time we made the Champions League final.
Yeah.
When Jens Lehmann sadly got sent out for that challenge on Etu. I thought that was the year we should have won it. I think it was 11v11 that night. I think we probably would have
Yeah.
won it, but
And those are the thing, that's
it's small
exactly what I'm
little
referring
margins,
to.
isn't it?
Yeah.
Small, just
Tiny
small.
margins,
Yeah,
face, look, and managers don't like to talk about look, and I get it. You've got to control your own controllables,
yeah. It's about
but
quality,
yeah, but
isn't
from their
it?
point of view,
Yeah,
but in reality though, the look does play a huge part. I mean, they
yeah,
can't legislate for that. They can't concede that, but it's true. You
yeah.
can just
It's
because the
honor.
day when they win, they're not going to go, oh, we were lucky to win. They're going to believe they were the better team. But I honestly think any team to win the Champions League, you've got to be lucky. And I think that Jens Lehmann red card is a perfect example of where Arsenal were unlucky that season. Yeah.
Yeah, big Sol Campbell got the goal that night. What a man.
Yeah.
Which Arsenal players have caught your eye over the years watching the Gunners, Connor, from commentating yourself? What players stood out for you?
Oh, there's been so many, isn't there?
Yeah,
I mean, genuinely, I've always enjoyed, and even in those lean years, the years, and you've mentioned them, over 2 decades, because it's very easy to sort of bounce back to the winning teams that were winning leagues and stuff like that, and you can pick them out, and I'm talking about the Vieira, Bergkamp, that kind of era, but even in more recent times, I always thought Jack Wilshere was a hugely unlucky player to the injuries that he
yeah.
suffered because when he was fit, he
He
was
was
he was
quality, wasn't he?
remarkable. I mean, he
Yeah,
really could do things. I always loved Santi Cazorla. He was kind of like this
exactly.
sort of cult hero. There was something about him, and again, totally unfair, but he just didn't look like a footballer. He didn't
No,
look like this elite athlete, and he was a little genius. And of course, he kept playing for. He's probably still
yeah.
playing now, but he's playing to a great age, wasn't he? I'm trying to think of the other players over the years, but yeah, I think if you were to sort of put me in the spot of a particular player where you felt I want to see more of him, it probably would have been Jack Wilshere. And he's one of those players where I just think he could have played for any team. Yeah.
Just with a few more moments, a few more minutes left of this, Connor, and appreciate you taking our time out for tonight. What have you made of Bournemouth's incredible rise under Spaniard Andoni Iraola, and also your thoughts on Arsenal's next Premier League opponents, Crystal
Mm.
Palace under Oliver Glasner? Quite incredible what he's achieved at Crystal Palace as well. It's two teams that no one would have really seen on the rise like they have been now, isn't it? Bournemouth in particular, what a job he's done.
Yeah, no, look, I think with Iriola, the mastery that he's been able to do is that. Sorry, that's my alarm going off. Give me 1 second, Jonathan. I'm really sorry. I hope you'll be able to edit and
You're,
clean all that
you're
up.
okay.
Where did I put it now? It's one of those of yeah. So go on. Ask me the question again. Sorry about that now. Oh yeah, Bournemouth. Okay. So Adoni Ariola, where he has done so well, uh, you look at the transfer business that club have done. I mean, I guarantee you, every chairman, every board member, every other Premier League team is going, "Whoa, we need to do what they are doing," because they bring in players, the young Spanish centre half, and no one knows who he is. He's a little kid. He was playing in Belgium or some such, and then suddenly they put him in the team, and then they send him to Real Madrid, and then you think, oh, that was this brilliant player they have, and they get rid of Kirkes to Liverpool. And I think it was a three at the back four, and Kepa, of course, goes
And
to
Kepa, yeah,
Arsenal. So
yeah,
this really solid defense from last season. They chop it up, they get rid of it, and you think, well, that's it. And then he just brings in other guys, and no one was queuing around the block to get the players that they've brought in. But wow, and that's where it comes down to the manager. And I think we're long suffering watching the Irish national team at the moment. And my view is I was watching the performance the other night, and I just felt it's difficult and people are under pressure. But you can sometimes tell when a team comes out onto a field and they've been well drilled, they know what the manager exactly wants them to do, and they've been prepared for it well. And that body language tells you so much. And I think you can see it in a team where they don't, that they're worried, and am I doing the role I should be doing? They look uncertain. And I think that is a huge thing that turns a good team into a really good team. Just being able to be prepared to go out there fully understanding what's going on. And I think Iriola, who ironically he maybe might be followed to hard to follow with the I think probably didn't have all the English language lessons that maybe some of the other foreign coaches had before they came to the country. So sometimes you're sort of trying to keep up with what he's saying. But that's media interviews, and it's a completely different story to how he's communicating with these players. But I've
yeah,
never seen an example where a coach has so well instilled in everyone knows what they're doing, and they make substitutions. The guy comes on, and there really seems to be a lovely fluidity to what he's doing there, and that is not easy to muster. So clubs are going to be swooping around him. Bournemouth will be doing their absolutely best to hold on to him. I mean, they're third in the table at the moment, and all of that having sold arguably their best players last season. It's incredible.
Even briefly as well, Connor, Oliver Glasner, who we
Mm,
FA Cup and Community Shield he won, and as like Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, they lose their top players nearly every summer, but they
yeah.
keep. Mateta's just been incredible, hasn't he? He's just one of those strikers. You don't know what he's going to do next, but a hat trick at the weekend against Bournemouth, and the style of football is really exciting to watch, isn't it?
Yeah, look, I do. Look, I mean, I work in the Premier League, and I'm so lucky to do so. And
Yeah,
sometimes when you sort of sing praises about it, you kind of, are you trying to hype it up or whatever? But it's not. I mean, genuinely, the quality there is so good. I've been really impressed with Sunderland coming up, and I think we've needed that. We
yeah,
reached a little bit of a stage where the new promoted teams were sort of being fodder and being drifted aside. But a team like Spurs who've spent so much money, they're finding it really hard to break into the top six and stay there. Manchester United, we know all about them, and the big history of the club, but they're finding it so hard to get up into that top third
yeah,
of the table. And the reason they are is because of clubs like Bournemouth, like Crystal Palace, who've just said, no, we're not going to bow down, we're not going to be reverential to the big name clubs, we're going to do it our way, we're going to battle. And make no mistake, mentioning Bournemouth selling players, but like for a team like Palace, a lot of clubs would have wanted Mateta this summer. They've obviously dug their heels in. They've said, right, you can have this player, you can have that player, but with one or two of them, the fact that Gay didn't move in the end, just shows that
that
sort
was
of
huge.
stubbornness. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it just shows up the mentality of the club. In the past, I've no doubt, 10 years ago, all those guys were gone. Now, one good season, win the FA Cup,
Gone.
gone.
Yeah,
The club
yeah,
cashes in, but new ambition now, and look, fair play to them. I think it makes it really interesting, and over the course of the season, Arsenal are going to go to these places and play these teams, and you cannot take anything for granted because they are quality opponents.
just briefly, Connor, Premier League aside, do you think Ireland could make the World Cup?
I don't, and I mean, I would love it. I'll be there. I'll be shoes off for the boys in green if they do. But
Yeah,
I've,
you don't
I've
think
oh
so?
dearie me, they've broke. I think what it is, I'm too close. I think when I work in Premier League, I'm very professional. I'm very neutral. And I love the drama. I love the late goals. I love the twisted. But I genuinely don't care for which team they come from. I just love the
Yeah,
drama of it.
you love the
And I guess
drama.
the trouble is when I watch Republic of Ireland, then I'm a proper football fan, and I'm tearing my hair out as to why the team can't play a bit better. But they've kind of broke my heart. They've broke my spirit. I've lost the faith
Yeah,
in them, and
Dad.
sadly, I mean, look, this is the biggest World Cup ever, more places than ever before. If you can't qualify this time, I mean, there is some Cape Verde Islands have qualified, and it's come on, we got to be there. But no, unfortunately, yeah. Look. As I said, hopefully, I'm just tempting fate, and this will spark the return to form. But at the moment, I'm really disillusioned with the whole thing. Yeah.
Well,
Listen, Jonathan,
Connor,
I gotta
it's
go,
been a
but thank you
pleasure.
so
Yeah,
much.
it's been a
Yeah,
pleasure,
yeah.
Connor. Thanks very
We'll
much for
catch up
taking your
again
time
soon in
out.
a few weeks.
Thanks very much, Connor.
Sound out. Sound.
Catch our show on the Dublin Arsenal YouTube channel and Spotify. But until next time, thanks very much.